for this?
You're ready. You ready?
Good morning.
There we are. You're on TV.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to introduce our special guests. We have Tim and Karen from Safe Haven for Babies, if I'm correct.
Children of Hope Safe Haven.
Children of Hope Safe Haven. Okay.
Now,
I'd like to
make sure we can hear.
we can hear it. Go ahead.
Tim and Karen are going to explain to us how this all came about, how they got it started, and what options there are for children who are having children.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what this basically is about. It's an alternative.
It's not just children, it's women.
Right,
It's
it works
not
for
only
women
just
and children. I understand that. You're going to aggravate me. Mickey's here. I think that's my son.
Okay, all right.
So why
That's the
don't we
roar of the
let,
bike outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
let Tim take the controls here. I'm going to back out, and he can explain to us.
Well,
what
in
it takes.
1998, as a medical officer with the police department, I was on call, and I received a call over the air to respond to a baby not breathing. And I found a 6-pound, 4-ounce baby boy drowned in a toilet bowl in a courthouse on Main Street.
Oh my God.
And 2 weeks after that, I responded to a call, baby not breathing, and I found a little baby girl wrapped up in a plastic bag on the side of a building in Albertson.
Oh my God!
2 weeks after that, responded to a call, baby not breathing, and I found a little baby in a wrapped up in a plastic bag that was buried in the backyard in Hempstead that was unearthed by a dog.
Oh my!
And then 3 weeks after that, responded to a call, baby not breathing, and I found a little baby boy wrapped up in a plastic bag inside a recycling bin in Lawrence, Cedarhurst, where the other baby the past week was found.
Wow.
Same.
That must be heart-wrenching too.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after
Can't imagine.
researching it, I discovered that in 1998, that a young woman could not legally go into a hospital, and give birth with the intent to leave and not take the child with her,
Okay.
without being charged with the crime of abandonment, endangering the welfare of a child, and
Right.
child neglect. With that in place, that is what I felt could be causing this particular problem. So I needed I wrote a bill, and I called it, at that time, the Safe Haven Bill. And I tried to get it passed throughout the United States, so I went to Washington, D.C., and I testified at the Center for Disease Control hearing to give them an idea that this was happening and that it was an epidemic and not just an isolated thing here in New York. And in a 10-month period from the time I found baby Angelica, of which the court officers named the baby, they named the baby Angelica Hope. And from there, we moved ahead and we started researching it. And I discovered in the 10-month period from the time we found baby Angelica, we had 41 babies victim to infanticide. Now, infanticide is the killing of a baby from birth to 1 year of age. Neonaticide is the killing of the baby within the first 24 hours, and infanticide from 24 hours to 1 year of age. Anything after a year, legal and in courts, they consider it a homicide.
Wow.
So with that information, I discovered that in Houston, Texas, had 13 babies in the same 10-month period. We had 16 babies here locally found in dumpsters and garbage cans.
God.
And then in Mobile, Alabama, they had a total of 12 babies. Now, Houston, Texas had 11 babies found deceased, and 2 of those babies were just barely alive. So what I did was I prepared this bill, and I called the local governor here, Pataki, and I could not get any politician willing to support my bill
Of course not.
and also sponsor it, except for a gentleman by the name of George Bush. He was governor of Texas at the time, and I flew to Texas, and we met, and he promised me that if I was to get the bill on his desk, he would sign it within 2 weeks. And he
Nice.
kept his word. So he
Push.
introduced me to Jeannie Morrison.
Yes.
Jeannie Morrison introduced me to several other local politicians and other people in Texas. And Texas became the first state in the United States to
Go
pass.
Texas.
Now, how many
Congrats.
states is Safe Haven in?
All 50 states now. Now,
God
what happened
bless.
at that point, we moved across the country, and after getting the Safe Haven bill in Texas, which it's called the Baby Moses Bill, that's what George named the bill at the
Nice.
time. And from there, we moved across, getting the rest of the country in line. So after testing at the Center for Disease Control and getting it so that they determined that it was an epidemic, and it's not just an isolated
Right.
situation. And good, I mean, you find 41 babies in 10 months.
Yeah, that's not
an
isolated.
exploding
That's-
situation.
It
Yeah.
just killed me recently with the 3 babies in, 1 week?
That-
Now, you have to look at what happened 9 months ago from this past week. You had Valentine's Day week just before Valentine's Day. So we've noticed over the years of 15 years of doing this that periods of time, 9 months after a particular holiday or
Right.
good weather, you have an increase of number of childbirths that take
Okay.
place, but you also have an increase in number of neonaticides that take place because of the unplanned pregnancies, hidden pregnancies.
That's
There's a lot of
insane.
facets
That's
that's
crazy.
plays in
Babies
this.
conceived on New Year's Eve.
Uh-huh.
A lot of babies conceived here during Storm Sandy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
that
So
was a
you're
lot.
9 months
Prom
after that, you
night.
notice. Yeah, prom night is a very, very big. Oh, yes, yeah.
Prom night. Here we go.
So if you calculate all that,
Yeah.
and we also noticed that you'll see an age difference when they call the crisis center. We usually are able to talk to the birth mothers and get them to what we call a flip. I want everybody in the audience out there to understand. We don't want a woman to use the Safe Haven law. We want them to use a different option. And the 3 options that we have is a parenting plan within the nucleus of her own family,
Okay.
an adoption plan with a licensed adoption agency.
Okay, that's-
And then the last
Nice.
resort is the relinquishment under the law. And then what happens at that case, the state will take custody of the child. The child is placed in foster adoptive care until we go through the termination proceedings. And once the termination takes place, the child's freed for adoption. And then the child then is adopted by the couple. So, but they try in all of the programs to place the child with a family that is going to foster that child until they can adopt the child. So the baby stays and the bonding takes
Stable,
place.
yeah.
Isn't
Stable
there a
and
lot
stable.
of turmoil sometimes with the birth mothers that they always feel that they're going to be chastised or there's going to be
Yes.
some
There's
repercussions
that fear,
against them?
that fear
Right.
of,
Yeah.
I've
And that's
already
why they
made
do
one
what they do,
mistake.
am I correct?
Right, that's why a few of them will choose to leave the baby with no information because they're afraid of their identity.
That's
being-
why, I guess your organization is trying to show them that there is none of that.
Correct.
That you're able to do this and be okay.
Right,
Correct.
absolutely.
Now, we formed, in 2002, we organized a National Safe Haven Alliance in Washington, D.C. And Tracy Johnson is my director over there, and she operates that. I was the president and director originally for a period of time, but then it was time to move on to the next level and
Yeah.
and allow.
Now, how could the Paul and Annie show
Help.
get
Well,
involved?
Get the message out there that it's not a stigma. To call the crisis hotline numbers. We have 5 crisis centers that operate in the United States here. We have the Safe Haven, which is the National Safe Haven Alliance hotline, which is answered in Ohio and here in New York also.
Okay.
Then we have the Children of Hope hotline, which is answered here in New York. We have another hotline in Massachusetts, and then Nick Savino has a hotline in Florida, and then we also have the California hotline, which is also answered here in New York. And the 800 numbers, they can call any of the numbers, and you'll be linked to the
We're
ability
going
to
to
do that.
Florida
Yes.
next month,
Yes,
Yeah.
and we can live stream.
yes.
So maybe we'll hook up with your guys in Florida.
Yeah, Nick
Where are they
would
located
be,
in Florida?
And
Well, the entire state.
No, I'm saying, like,
Where-
what area
where are
are
they
they
located?
located?
I believe they're in Palm Springs area.
hey, that's not bad. We
Yeah,
can
that'd be
meet them.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can get Nick to get
Yeah,
a hold
give-
I
of
would
you.
love to do
give-
that.
I would love to
Yeah.
do a live
Live show.
stream.
there.
And that would be like the second part to this,
Yeah.
to show that not only is it here, it's available worldwide.
The
And
whole entire country.
yeah, the kids got to understand that a lot of them,
No.
it's out of fear.
Yeah. Now, every state has safe haven law, as we said. Every hospital in the United States is a safe haven location. So that's a safe location for them to be able to go to. And they have different time spans in the laws, because originally I wanted a federal bill, and that's what the National Alliance is trying to do
Right.
with Tracy Johnson and Terry McGuire. What we're doing there is that we want to make it so that all the laws will be identical throughout the United States. It's called a unification bill.
Okay.
And it's, we're going to hope that Peter King, Caroline McCarthy, and Steve Israel will be the Congress people that are going to be sponsoring the bill.
I'd like to get one of them out here on the show.
And then they'll be able to turn and move and change it to where it be the same. So for instance, we had an incident just recently in a state. I can't give the location because the baby was relinquished safely. She was in one state, and it was 72 hours that she had the legal right to relinquish that child.
Right.
But she lived on the border, and she wound up relinquishing that child in the state over the border because it was 30 days in that state.
Oh, God.
So here, where she lived in the one state, she had only 72 hours to do that, but yet she went over the border, and she wound up having 30 days to be able to relinquish the child.
That was
because
a
she left
wonderful
the
thing, though,
hospital.
because the baby was safe.
Baby
Right.
was safe and is alive,
All that
and that she
matters.
did not want to.
Absolutely.
Now, we have specialized hospitals that operate here, and we call them special safe havens because they have an arrangement with the safe haven program for the state, where a birth mother can go in anonymously under a name. So for instance, if Annie was pregnant and she called the crisis center and she has not given birth yet, we can make arrangements for her to go to North Shore LIJ, for
I was gonna
instance.
ask that if. they
And
could
you
do
would go
that.
in under the name of Annie Hope. Some states call it Annie Haven. It would be Jane Doe or Annie Doe Haven. So each state has a different, each hospital has a
something like
different
that.
So
setup.
it's connected all to the
So-
same organization.
So what it
like
does, it
saying-
gives us an opportunity here to be able to have the birth mother understand that she's able to remain anonymous, give birth, and it gives us a little more time to give her the rest of the options that she has.
And if one of us could be with her, physically be with her, then
Her
we'll
for
be
the
with her.
delivery, and then we'll have someone there with her.
They're not
to do
alone.
that.
That's the problem.
That's
They
it.
all think
That's
they're
it.
alone because,
And 99% of the time, and then we're talking, that's a fairly large number,
yeah,
are
that is.
the ones that we call it flip. They flip from wanting to relinquish to either making a parenting plan with the nucleus of her family and/or making an adoption plan
That's
through their license to
fantastic.
Davis.
That's
So
fantastic.
that 1% still gives us a high number of
Yeah.
relinquishments. We've had 2,885 babies safely relinquished into the program.
Nice. That's
So,
the way to go.
That is.
and that's the whole concept of what we're trying to do here. And to get the message out there, we've been in high schools, we have videotapes. Patricia Heeden is one of our spokespeople. She's made about 9 different public service announcements for us, and it has been aired many times. And then we also have Samantha Cole. She's Nat King Cole's great-great-granddaughter.
Okay.
She wrote 2 songs for us on the
Well,
Safe Haven program. And
We found out about it from a friend of ours
Right.
that's close to you. He goes by the name Breezy.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I always
really?
used to see the safe haven along the highways and.
I forgot my
every place
shirt.
I went,
I have a
Right,
safe
what does that
haven
mean?
shirt.
And I never knew what it meant.
Yeah, we had not a
And then
clue.
Breezy started telling us about it, and then we started hearing a lot about Karen and you. And then the organization we're with has been around Karen, and hearing about it, and then, like I said, I have a grandchild recently, and to sit there and see a precious life like that, and then to hear on the news
Yeah, I
that these
couldn't
people
fathom.
don't realize. That's why me and Paulie sat there and said, you know what? Even though we're computer generated based or we're YouTube, whatever it is, we're able to get out the word.
But
And
we're
that's why I
hitting,
feel
we're
it's
hitting over
important.
40,000.
And like us, we didn't know nothing
that's
about
what we
it. And I think
need.
it's important
Yeah.
that other people
And we have no
know what is
problem
these
doing
signs.
it. As you can see,
You know?
we can
Right.
care less. Now, here is a big thing I want to put out there. Sometime in January, I'm doing a show at the Patchogue Theater. And one of the reasons is Safe Haven, and it's crossed with the Stop the Bullying campaign to Suffolk County.
Awesome.
Yes.
So these are 2 powerful things that really, need
Very
to be
awesome.
going out there. Because you
Sure.
kind of think about it, they're both
thank you,
kind of
Paul.
like really close
Well,
to each
they're
other.
together.
Not much between bullying
Right.
and having a bad parent go,
Right.
hey, don't come home with that. It's not like you found a puppy.
But honestly, Paul, you
that's-
keep sitting there saying with a child also, it's not just directly with children,
But
there's women out
All
there.
right, but here's my question, and my question is to parents. Now, I have a lot of children. My children could talk to me about anything. My one daughter, Nicole, puts it the best. He's gonna be pissed off for about 45 seconds. He's gonna walk out the door, gonna light a cigarette, he's gonna come back in, and just sit down and talk to you. He's not gonna strangle you, he's gonna help you work through
Right.
it.
There's not
But
a
they're
lot of
lucky.
What
out
kind of
there.
parents have we raised? What does this tell you about our generation as parents?
Right.
That you would chastise your own child for
Right.
making a childhood mistake?
Well, some of the
That's-
ones who are younger and they've hidden their pregnancy from the parents and they feel so desperate that they don't have an alternative.
But now they do.
Hence that,
That's it.
right, that they don't have their alternative because they don't know about baby safe haven.
There's also
So
reasons.
One of the
We
biggest
do.
problems we have is being able to get the public service announcements out there and do that. Now, when we started in 99 and 2000, we did not have the YouTubes and the Facebooks and
Right.
the media networks that we
She's
have
amazing.
today.
She's so
Phenomenal.
amazing with
She's-
what she does with the media
oh,
out
yeah.
there.
It's very
And it's
important.
very
a
important
million.
to get
And
that.
it's not
Social
just like
network.
a one or two thing, it's a million different things a day.
Yeah, when you look on YouTube and you see these hits that some of these sites have had, 2 million, 3 million, 6 million, 5 million, that's what we're beginning to see now with the Safe
Nice.
Haven and getting out there. But in the beginning, I was paying $10,000 to have a 30-second spot on television, on MTV, for instance. And that's what they were charging for us. And originally, the federal government used to mandate that news medias had to provide free airtime, and they would air it at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah,
which is okay, because some...
A lot of these cycles are still up.
They're up at that time, and a lot of
Yeah.
the young women that are in crisis have sleep deprivation, and they're out there and they're
course,
wishing it.
I-
But today, we have instant contact with people today.
Yeah.
It's a
That's
good
amazing.
thing and it's a bad thing. But yet, we find that being able to be out there and on this is where we're beginning to see an increase in the number of calls that are coming in.
You can always count us.
Yeah, you can always
Thank you so
count.
much.
Every time we bury a baby, I've buried 109 children so far at Holy Rood Cemetery. We bought an island there, and that's how the organization really was formed. It was all of the medics in the police department, AMTs, that organized it's called the AMT Children of Hope Infant Burial Foundation. And the idea was to give dignity to the babies that I had. And I founded it because I had baby Angelica, and I had Catherine, and all the babies that we've had. So we bought the island, and it's at Holy Rood Cemetery. It's Section 27, but they renamed it the Island of Hope, and that's where all of our children are laid to rest. But every child that we've buried has rescued at least one infant. And one of the greatest experiences we had was we had a funeral for Jonathan and Matthew. They were two little newborns that were victim to neonaticide on the Williamsburg Bridge. They were found together at the same time, one on Brooklyn side and one on the Manhattan side. We thought they were twins originally, and it turned out to be two separate cases.
That's
So
horrible.
after the medical examiner finished the case and the detectives were done with the investigation, they really weren't,
find
they
any
never found
parents?
the parents on these two. They usually don't. We had the honor guard funeral for the baby. Now, what we do is we had the Blue Knights and the motorcycle groups escort the hearse, and we brought the baby from Wantor, or both of them, through the Midtown Tunnel, through the Long Island Expressway Midtown Tunnel, and by the time we've got to St. Patrick's Cathedral, there were over 1,500 people at the funeral. It was one of the largest contingencies we've ever had, and we were able to turn around and have the cathedral open the front doors of the cathedral up, which normally they don't open the big doors up except for dignitaries. And they did for our two children. And we brought them in with over 1,500 police officers
Now,
and
there's
medics
going to be a
all on
funeral
duty.
this weekend, isn't there?
Not this weekend, it's November 9th
Okay.
is the tentative date right now. It's going to take place at St. Joseph's Church in Hewlett.
Okay.
It's just up the road from where he was found in the recycling bin, on
That
the conveyor.
full-term baby boy.
Yeah, I can't fathom that.
On a
having
conveyor
kids.
belt. in the sanitation.
You know, from a girl's point of view, I understand she's a young girl, she's panicking. But from a guy's point of view, I started having kids at a young age. I never shied away from it. I've always embraced it. And, like, even when I was married a couple of times, I always told my exes, at any time, don't ever think that I will not come here and remove these children from you, because I will. I will fight you in a court of law. And I didn't. I ended up with custody of 4 of my sons. And it was amazing that my friends were like, why would you do that?
I can't
said,
fathom
'Cause
somebody just giving
they're
up their
mine.
children. I just can't.
How could you, as a guy, know you got a girl pregnant and then go, hey, it's not mine?
That's what we established in the Safe Haven program, what is known as a putative fathers registry. New York State has a registry, it's called the Putative Fathers Registry, and most of the states do. There's 23 of them that have incorporated that responsibility into the Safe Haven programs. Now, what that means is that a man, if he believes he conceived a child out of wedlock, and he is the father of that child, it's his legal responsibility to register. And if he does, any baby that is brought into the Safe Haven program and any baby that's placed into an adoption process without a father's name on the birth certificate that matches his description in his registry,
Right.
will be notified by court order of the child, and if his DNA matches with it, he can then have custody of that child. It's called a putative registry. He has from the time of conception to 30 days after the birth of that child to register.
Every guy I know that ever had a problem with girlfriends or wives, I've been in the biking community a long time. We would rather hold on to ours and let them go and say, well, go take care of yourself, clean up, do whatever you got to do to become a responsible mom. But in the meantime, you're going to give me these kids.
There's also, though,
And but the kids today don't want to take
It's not just the
responsibility
kids
for
today,
nothing.
you also gotta understand-
That's the problem.
you also got to understand, there's also, and I'm sorry to say it because it's out there, there's a lot of rape victims.
Well, also you've got the sex slave industry out here.
Yeah.
Which is
and,
horrific. I am so. I was married to a rape survivor, and I would never wish it on any
So you
guy
can imagine how many of them get
because
pregnant.
it beat me up.
from-
Absolutely.
Even though it
situation
happened
that they
prior
can't deal
to
with
me
the
getting
child.
there. But when she was having episodes, I didn't understand the episodes, what the rage was about, why. And then in time, she finally broke through. And it actually destroyed my marriage. It destroyed my life because it destroyed my kids. Because we never could understand it. And then when it finally came out, we were even more shocked that nothing was ever done to get her help or to apprehend.
So you can just imagine what
people that did
happens to
Mm-hmm.
women that are out there when they're pregnant, they don't know where to turn because their mind isn't all there. So they don't know where to turn
And
to.
the calls we get are from girls as young as 12 up to
Oh my God.
40.
Where are the parents? 12
Our
years?
youngest birth mother we've had was 12 years old. Now, how we handled that was we were able to...
Incarcerate the parents?
No. She has the right to remain anonymous, anybody that's pregnant at that time. But then after the baby was born, because she came and notified us when she was in her 8.5 months of the pregnancy. So you can tell that there's definitely dysfunctional family that's going on out there. ACS was and did become involved after the child was born, but the child was relinquished into the Safe Haven program, and we then had ACS do an investigation and go in and straighten the situation out.
That's what we all can do.
Yeah.
How old is
And
mom
the father
was?
was 13, so I mean, here you have...
Holy
so you have- you have-
mamma, they're just...
You know, but on the other notes here, I mean, we've had such great success stories
Well, that's
of
the
these
whole thing.
babies
That's what it's
that
all
have been
about. That's
adopted and
some
raised
story.
in it. Now, we've delivered over 24 babies by telephone. And yeah,
Babies over the phone?
you know, when the program started, we, as again, being a medic in the police department, we had medical control, and you would get these incoming calls, and you would have a woman that was in labor, and then we would then get the location, and we would then dispatch an ambulance to the location, and again, if she goes into labor before the ambulance gets there, we have a procedure that we were able to walk her through. But I had to come up with a procedure that was even more intense than the one, because we've received many calls from young women that were in labor, refused to have tell us where they were, and all they're doing is wanting to give birth to the child anonymously, and then leave the babies in a firehouse or a station. So here, we're asking her, please let us have somebody come to help you deliver, and they will not tell us. So we walked them through it. Now, there's one case that we had. She had a girlfriend with her, and I was in San Diego, California, getting ready to go onto a cruise, when I was just about to turn my cell phone over, and when I was getting onto the ship, when the crisis center contacted me and said, we have a young girl on the phone, she's in labor, and she has a friend with her. Anytime, anywhere, 24 hours a day, if a woman is in labor or has already given birth, I'm to be notified no matter where I am.
Wow.
And this particular young lady got on the phone, and her girlfriend, I'm going to use a different name, her name was Kathy, and she helped me deliver her girlfriend's baby. It took us 2.5 hours. I had to plug my cell phone in. Now, my wife was with me, and if you've ever been on a cruise,
It was left you?
have you ever been on a cruise?
No.
All right, when you go in to get onto the ship, they give you a pass card, and when you use that as your identification when you get on and off the ship when you're in port of other areas. So you're in with 4,000 people in a big, huge warehouse-sized room.
Oh, God.
And you're going through the lines to go up to show them your passport, show them your ID, and then they take your picture, and then it goes on the card, and then when you get on these ships, every time you leave the ship, your ID, your photo is shown in it. So I'm on this line going back and forth, and I have to say, around me was about 85 people, which I refer to as Homo sapien erectus geriatrics. They're all over the age of 80, 85.
Oh, my God.
And speaking on the phone, trying to be a little more discreet about it, my wife is looking for security to try to get them and explain to them what I was doing, to get me through the line, get me up onto the ramp so I can get onto the ship and plug it in a private place.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, Kathy, as I say, that's a given name I'm giving right now. It's not the real girlfriend's name. And I'm trying to explain to her how to examine her girlfriend so that she can
I've had that experience.
so that she can tell me that she's 10 centimeters dilated, or if she was crowning, and then she's ready for the delivery. So I'm explaining to her, and around me are all these people. I said, Kathy, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to take your 3 fingers, and I need you to stick your fingers into her vagina and feel the upper rim and tell me what you feel. Now, when I say that, the Homo sapien erectus geriatrics that were around me, their eyeballs and their ears popped up. All of a sudden, they had selective hearing. Their hearing aids were working really well. And they're listening to the conversation. And they're excited. They're saying, what's going on? My wife says, he has a call right now that he's helping a young woman deliver a baby on the telephone. On the telephone? Nobody could believe that this was going on. Now the security people come over, they escort me, and my wife says, I'll stay here and wait until they said, no, you come with him. So we came in there, went up there, and I'm still talking on the phone, and I'm standing in front of the security guys there, the camera, and holding up my passport. They check my passport. Yes, that's me. They take my picture, turn around, get back on the phone again. They escort me up the ramp, and they plug the phone in. The people I left. Now remember, this event took 2.5 hours.
Oh, goodness.
And next to me was all of these people, and they were upset that they wanted to find out what the heck happened.
Oh, my God.
So we get on the ship, I turn around, she delivers the baby. Now, after the baby was delivered, I have to determine whether or not the birth mother is ready to deliver the placenta. That's the after secondary birth. So in order to do that, I'm not there to examine her and see what's going on.
Why?
So what I had to have the girlfriend do is cord, and it was still pulsating. So the baby's laying on the mother's stomach, and the cord is pulsating. And then when it stopped, I explained to her, now, we discussed that you have to tie the cord off, and I explained to her how to tie the cord off, and then, now again, the baby's lower than the mother was,
Right.
to allow the blood flow to continue flowing into the baby. And then once the cord was tied off, we cut the cord. Now we had the baby's wrapped up, and the birth mother still did not want to parent or make an arrangement for this child other than relinquishing him to the Safe Haven program. So now what we had to do is my wife's telephone, she got a hold of the local police. Now, remember, I'm in San Diego, California. This birth is going on in another state.
Oh, my God.
Amazing.
Good 10 hours away from where I was.
Oh, God.
Good
So
God.
with that, we were able to get a hold of the local fire department. The girlfriend, Kathy, could not tell me where the firehouse was. All she knew, it was up the road in this town. So I called.
Excuse me one second, let's see who this is.
What do you call every... Oh, you have a baby?
Yeah, I had to have all 4 fire stations.
Hello, you're on Madhouse TV, can I help you? Hello?
Turn up the volume on the thing,
On what?
on the phone.
Would you move? Can't see it. Thank you. It's on.
Okay. One more.
Okay, bye.
So what we did was we had the fire department, got the dispatcher on the phone and explained to them what was going on. And they alerted all 4 of their fire stations. And they had the firemen standing on the ramp with their ambulance waiting for this young girl to walk up the ramp. Now, I had her on my phone. We got the dispatcher on my wife's phone, and we're back and forth talking with them. Meanwhile, the crisis center is still online with us, listening to this conversation.
Oh,
In
my
case I
God.
lose her, we don't really lose her because we have a
Yeah.
hard line connected to the incoming call. And we walked her through. She walked up to the firehouse, and she turned the corner. She gets back on the phone. She says, "I can't do this. I can't go to that firehouse." I go, "What's the matter?" She says, 6 firemen standing on the ramp. She was terrified that all these 6 men were standing on the ramp. So I get the dispatcher and I go, "Listen, you got the fire department. You got 6 men standing on the ramp. Get them off the ramp and leave one person, preferably a woman."
Yep.
And then you can hear the dispatcher dispatched over the air, and he told everybody, and
Wow.
all of them ran into the firehouse and left one female fire medic out on the ramp.
That's
And she then
nice.
says, "Okay, I'll go now." She walked up there, handed the baby over to them, and then drove away, and he walked away and disappeared.
Commercial. That's
Well, I have just
great.
one question.
Go ahead.
Like, you were explaining how, like, there was a girl there that were from there that was
Yeah.
able to help her tie off
Yeah.
the umbilical cord.
Yeah, but the
What
birth mothers can do
happens-
that.
I can't understand them. I can't understand what they're going through at that point by themselves. But to be able to sit there and just tie it off and just,
What is it? It's
That's a bag of
called,
candy, like he's giving it away.
No, the fight
Fight.
or flight.
The fight-flight
I just,
syndrome.
that's something that I always say, how do they wind up like?
And not only by
That's
the
what
difference.
You have to,
But that
they're in
kicks
full
in.
denial of these things. Now think, also postpartum depression plays a role in this,
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
we're very well aware of.
Very well aware of
Well,
that.
you start from stepping out.
That's is something that you have to really understand and try to
That's what
convey
scares me,
also.
because I hear this so much, and to hear them that they're by themselves, they're scared, they don't know what's going on, first of all, and then they're able to sit there and tie off the umbilical cord and just get up and walk away. It's just,
Well, a lot of
The
the
adrenaline rush.
yeah.
A lot of the babies that are received still have the cord attached with the placenta.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the baby that we have in Lawrence, that child was born, and was cord and placenta was all attached. And
Full term in the recycle.
on the conveyor belt. That's the one that will be buried in November.
And the Victoria's Secret baby too, also full term.
Yeah.
Full term drowned, and she could have called us no matter where she was.
Yeah.
And if we could physically get somebody to get to them, we do that, and if not, we tell them where to go.
Well, here in New York, we're very lucky because the police departments are heavily involved and are trained in the procedures of safe haven relinquishment.
so they just leave the
What
babies?
we can do is that we can contact, which we did upstate. I contacted police department, said, "Listen, I have a young girl, she gave birth to a baby, she's in a trailer camp. She doesn't want anybody to come near her. could you get one of the plainclothes officers to go to this intersection, and she's going to come and approach you and hand you the baby. The sheriff had no idea what I was talking about, so I was able to send him a copy of the policy and procedures and send him the law and walk him through it when she approached, and he then understood and knew about it. So there are departments out there, police officers, fire departments, that know something about it, but don't know exactly how to go about
That's the
doing
same
it.
thing I heard.
And then that's why the training is what we're doing with our training seminars.
Right, and something like this, the more people we meet, the more, I wear the shirt like all the time, I have like 10 of them, and I'll say, do you know what the baby safe haven law is? Do you know how it works? You know, all over the country, no questions
One of
asked.
the really unique laws, two of them, is here, New York and Maryland. The only two states that allow it. A safe haven is not a place, but a responsible person willing to accept a newborn and call the proper authorities. So everybody in New York State is a safe haven. If a woman approaches you and hands you a baby, or a man hands you a baby,
Right.
you take that baby, as long as you call for assistance, 911, or bring the baby to the hospital, and then explain that somebody handed you the baby and it's a safe haven, that is what they
Now,
need to
this
know.
is the number all over the world, or is this just here
If
for
you
you?
dial that 800 number anywhere,
Okay,
from Canada, London, we have a safe haven in London, we have in
Oh.
Canada, you call that number and we'll get you the assistance that's needed and get you walk through it.
that's fantastic, but I'm gonna, hold on for a second, that I can see. And I'm gonna go to a commercial for a second, so we can breathe.
I said, Mr. Prime Minister, I'm flattered that you love chocolate, but I'm here strictly in a professional. What's wrong with him?
He thinks you're naked.
My shell is brown. It just looks like my milk chocolate is showing. Only a fool would think I'd actually show up naked.
So it's that kind of party. Hit it. I'm sexy and I know it. Aye. Look at that body. Look at that body. Look at that body. I work out. Wiggle, 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 wiggle.
Dad, where do babies come from?
Well, there's that big, shiny rocket ship. That's right, it's filled with babies of all kinds. And when the shiny rocket ship penetrates, mommy and dad goes, and when the time is just right, there's a space launch.
All systems go.
Babies of all kinds. Released all over the place. Yeah, Africa. Mommy's baby.
Winter recycling baby, we saved 12.
Winter Brothers.
Winter Brothers.
Winter Brothers.
Winter
Out here in
Brothers.
Yaphank, we have
After that baby, after we buried that baby, which he was found on January 2nd and we buried him March 13th, we had 12 babies saved locally.
Nice.
That's fantastic.
This year, in August, we had 4 babies safely relinquished here locally. In the month of August, 4, and we had 1 a week for that month of
Well, I
August. First
also
time that
heard
happened.
of one around 9/11
Yeah,
that you
Yeah.
rescued.
right. Just 2 days before 9/11, crisis center, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was working a night shift, and I got a call, and then I called medical control, left and took off and went into Manhattan and met this young girl who had actually had my card. I met her at a health fair in the Grand Concourse in the Bronx.
Oh, wow.
And she was a student, and she went into labor, and she was befriended by a man that was so drunk he couldn't stand, and he was laying at the bottom of the rock when I pulled up on 59th and 6th Avenue in Manhattan. That's near Central Park, and went in there, and I delivered the baby on the rock, and wrapped the baby up, kept the baby warm, and there was an ambulance called. They put the baby in an ambulance, and they brought the baby to St. Louis Roosevelt Hospital. Right after that, we also brought the intoxicated man. Put him in the back of the bus, and I couldn't leave him there. My mom did not want to go to the hospital, so I took her to a hotel and put her up in a room, and we had monitored her for all the way up to 9/11. And when 9/11 happened, September 11th, she disappeared, and we never saw her again.
Wow.
Now Molly was brought. I mean, that's her name right
Yeah,
now.
Molly.
Molly is the baby.
God bless.
And she, the befriended alcoholic is released from the hospital and is interviewed and goes goes out and says that he found the baby in the ditch covered with ants. And this poor kid
Thinks that.
was not. I made sure that didn't happen. So it's social workers that were involved in the case let me be aware of who the adoptive couple were. And it turns out that the couple that adopted this child, was fostering the child, lived 2 miles away from me.
Oh, wow.
And I was able to have contact.
They didn't say it was the drunk.
And so Molly, I've known now, since she was born, and I took care of it. and
That's
it was-
Yeah, we get to see her.
so-
That's fantastic.
They bring her to the events and stuff that we have sometimes.
Yeah, she's a great, I have contact with a lot of.
What's the next event you guys have coming up?
We have the ultimate, Supreme Cigar Night at Mulcahy's on November 16th. It's almost sold out. It's a great event. We have, you'll have cigars. You'll be drinking Johnny Walker Blue, $267 a bottle.
Just make sure you don't
Patron,
fall over a rock.
vodka. But we have the comedian, the Fat Rat Bastard.
Oh, wow.
From Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Your faces off.
Yeah, and so, as I say, this event,
going.
it's
Which way?
Go in.
it's $1,750 for a table, $175 a person, but when you walk into the door, you're receiving $125 worth of cigars, cigarette lighters, and
Okay.
cutters.
What's it gonna cost me to go there?
$175.
It's what?
Holy Kokomo!
But you're getting $125.
Money doesn't matter.
Let's do this. Being your brother Joey smokes the cigars, he can sponsor me to go.
You can have the fun and give him the cigar.
Right, I'll give him the cigars. Joey, if you're out there, you're gonna sponsor me. Your wife is a postal worker, she can afford it. And I'll just give my brother-in-law all the cigars, and
And what else?
Now, it's business attire required, so that's your business attire.
yes, this is, for Halloween, I'm dressing up as a...
Who dresses up nice?
I do,
He's gonna get dressed up as an executive.
Clean up well?
Yeah, that's what
Clean
they
up
said. I scared my friends. I went to a funeral one night, and I had a tie on with my cuts on top of it, with a Scully. And the girl whose dad it was a very close friend of ours, she looked at me and she went hysterical. She was crying. She was, I cannot believe that you actually put on a dress shirt and a tie
He
to come
does.
see my father. You know, he was my friend, my best friend. So why would I want to disrespect them? I wouldn't give up the cuts. They were his cuts, so I had to wear my brother's vest, and everybody was like shocked. And I actually worked for 2 days. And I was like, can I take it off now? And I was like, oh God, I hated it. But I've been told when I go, you better not put me in those suits. I'll come back and haunt the shit out of you. This is it. I've been like this since I'm a
And what
kid.
is the oldest child that was rescued at this point? How old is the
15.
oldest? 15.
15?
Yeah, now, that particular child was relinquished into the Safe Haven program here locally with an agreement with Dennis Dillon. Now, and Charles Hines. Now, before New York passed their law in 2001, we already had a crisis hotline set up and relinquishing babies safely into our program.
Okay.
Which we had 9 babies relinquished safely into our program before the law was passed. And Charles Hines, especially in Brooklyn, he's my saint. It was them, the district attorneys, that had an agreement, says, Tim, if a girl calls the crisis center and you are involved in handling the baby, we will not pursue prosecution of that young woman if the baby is safe and relinquished in the hospital. So, and that was, and they kept their word, and 9 babies that we had safely relinquished. So it was before the law passed. So technically, the law wasn't even in existence at the time. But
they saw the value in what you were
absolutely,
doing, and
absolutely.
they were,
So we have,
sometimes you gotta close the blind.
Right, so we have from brand new newborns up to the 15-year-old.
Wow, that's
Are
something.
any of the mothers, have any of the mothers actually, what do do they ever go to the hospitals after they just like abandon the baby?
Well, the
Or they just-
in the manual, in what we have, is we have what is known as a Dear Birth Mom letter. It explains everything to her. And they get it online also. They can, when they go on the website.
Yeah, everybody's
they
got a
can-
computer, everybody's got an iPhone.
Yeah.
You got a job,
And
you got an iPhone.
that explains to her, it gives her it's called a postpartum checklist. It tells her if she's having complications, if she's running a fever, if she's bleeding and going through more than 2 pads in an hour, that there could be a possible problem with the bleeding. And we will get her, if she's local and we're near her, we will bring her into one of our OBGYN doctors. I have Dr. Rosenberg and Dr. Coca. Those are my two main, they're on my board. They're the medical staff, OBGYN doctors, and they have seen and helped take care of dozens, hundreds of
So I
mothers
see,
for us.
my daughters have had, I've been there when they've had babies, and I see how they are afterwards. And how they're really not able to function. How do you just...
Because these girls, their adrenaline kicks in, they just do it, and they
just go on like every day, like...
Amazing.
Well, they bought a pair.
Well, we had a young girl that Karen was involved with, and Freddie Davis was involved in it, and so was Ronnie Kale. They're my executive board members. And it took place here locally, near a lake. I'm not going to give you the location of where it was, but here in Suffolk County. And she called, and I had her on the phone, and all four of us we drove to this lake, and we're driving around. She said she was in her car in a parking lot.
At 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh my God.
And we're driving around trying to locate. She gave us the description of the car that she was in. But again, she refused to go to the hospital. She was sitting in this parking lot. And we finally found her, and we delivered the baby in the front seat underneath the steering wheel of the car. In her front seat. After the baby was born, I handed the baby over to Karen. Karen took the baby and went back to her car and was holding and checking the baby out. I took care of the birth mother, and she absolutely refused to go to the hospital. She would not go. She wanted to go home and take a shower. She was able to get out of the car, stand, and we cleaned her up a little bit. She got back in the car, and
Went home
and she just drove away. But she promised me she would stay in contact with me. So what we did is they went over to the hospital with the baby, and I stayed with the mother and made sure that she was okay. And she went in, she took her shower, she was okay, and then she stayed in contact with me for 3 days, and making sure she was all right. Explained to her we can get her to go see one of the doctors privately. She said, no, I'm fine. I don't have any problems with this.
What was amazing about that story is we had been on Channel 12 News the night before because there had been another incident the day before, and Lee Tyrell had focused the whole segment on Baby Safe Haven, and that girl saw the episode, and that's how come she called us.
That's something me and you spoke about the other day.
Amazing.
How...
So that technically the girl
The
who
death of that baby that we had, that we buried in that news coverage, was about
saved that other
save
baby's
this
life.
baby, see it.
Nice.
Amazing.
Well, that's, me and Karen had talked the other day, and we were sitting there saying when the 3 babies, not one part of On the News had anything to show that there's Baby Safe Haven out there. There's the alternative. This doesn't have to happen.
But because the media doesn't want to glorify that there's an option.
But you want to know what they need to.
We tried to
save
get them to do
children.
that. What happens a lot of times is, for instance, with this particular case, I was down at the sanitation recycling plant, and I was interviewed, and I gave them almost a 20-minute interview, and about the Safe Haven, and the editors, they edited. When you have a news coverage like this, 20 seconds is what you have, and if you can't get that number, what we were hoping to someday to see them do is when they have a story like this or something revolving this, at least put a little under
Or scroll
underneath the hotline number. If you need help, call the crisis hotline.
They charge such a
Well, what
ridiculous
happened is,
amount to do commercial.
after the funeral on November 9th, because the media will focus on the funeral, we'll have them share the Safe Haven information, and then we'll have a rippling effect of saves. Like the baby,
On the back of my truck.
like the baby,
All over the place.
I have them in my car, the bumper stickers, but when we had buried the baby that was found in the recycling bin in Yaphank, right after that funeral, we saved 12 babies locally.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because that had a lot of coverage. The reason why was I bless the Winter Brothers family for that. They helped us with the funeral itself, and but one of their workers picked up a a one-ton cube of garbage, and he saw a hand and an arm sticking out of the side of the bin, and he then brought it down off the forklift. He was getting ready to load it on the back of a tractor trailer to be taken and burned, and then he lowered it down and looked at it. It was frozen solid, and that's when he says, "Oh my God, this is
It
my
was
daughter,
January
this is a baby."
2nd that happened.
January 2nd that was, and then they cut the block out and brought this little cube out, and the baby was inside there, and then they thawed it out at the medical examiner's office, and then determined, it was a full term, and the baby was alive for a period of time. They do a special test, and they have to make sure that the alveoli in the lungs are fully engorged with oxygen, and also the capillaries in the extended fingers and everything. And if the baby is taking a breath and is breathing, these engorged alveoli and the lungs, you can't squeeze that out. So they would take it and they float it, and if the lungs float, then it indicates that the child is alive, was alive and breathing before it was either asphyxiated.
So this poor man finds this two body
You
parts.
just take a baby and throw him in the dumps like that. How do you live with yourself? This is a
lot of them are in denial. We talked about
complete. It's got to smack you in the head like a shovel.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the middle of the night or a year later or 6 months later, somewhere along the line, there's got to be some remorse from these children that are just discarding them like they're trash. And that's the part that amazes me. I know my children. You know your children. You know yours. You can look in their face and say something's wrong.
Yeah.
How does your child have a baby, throw it in the dumpster, and goes home and eats dinner? And you don't see this?
Like parents,
I
they
also-
just go on, they're not focusing on any of
And
it.
I also help people adopt, and I'd say more than half the time, the girls who make adoption plans are living at home, and their parents don't know that they're pregnant.
Now, is there a number or
crazy.
an address that people can call or write or donate to?
Yep, they can call the crisis hotline number itself. We
Okay.
would prefer they call the main office. That number is 516-781-3511, or they can call the crisis hotline and they can
Find a
get
way of
information.
donating straight.
Right, and we have a website.
Yeah, we have a website. They go
And we
there.
also have a Safe Haven, a Baby Safe Haven page, which is AMT, Children of Hope, Baby Safe
Safe
Haven.
Haven posters will be up here with me and Paulie for a while.
Yeah, we're
So-
gonna
Yeah.
keep those and send them out.
You can hear the other stories that are on there, and you can read some of the stories of the birth mothers. Now, we have contact with them. Matter of fact, this morning, I had a birth mother call me. She actually had an abdominal pain last night at 5 o'clock in the morning, and she was in the hospital and she needed medication, and she didn't have the copay to get the medication that she needed. So she called me this morning at 8 o'clock before I came here, and she gave birth to her baby and relinquished her child 9 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So I helped her 9 years ago, and she stayed in contact with me, and whenever she needs to even just to talk to me, she calls and do that. I have a lot of birth mothers that call.
Well, that's
and talk to me.
fantastic.
Tim has a
Somebody to turn
special,
to.
he has a special relationship with a lot of them. They developed that
Well, that's
bond.
something that a lot of people don't know. There's not a lot of people out there. with
Now,
that
we
like
talk about a father. 2 weeks ago, I had a phone call from a father that relinquished his child with the birth mother. And he's the one that stays in touch with me. And it's now been 6 years since he relinquished the child.
Wow.
And he says, well, Tim, I just want to know how's everything going. And he named his son Luke. And I said, Luke is doing very well right now. He's in school, and he's articulating very well. He's very bright. And so just to have him hear that, and it's
So
okay.
that they
It's
did,
an
so that they did right by
Absolutely.
releasing the children, because
Correct.
that does also, I guess, put a toll on the parents'
And the
hearts
thing is,
that by not knowing where the child is and if they're doing right, if they're safe, you know you did good.
Right.
But if you don't know, if you just relinquish the child and you don't have any of that contact
It's like
afterwards,
turning a puppy loose in the
It can kill you
wild.
inside.
You don't know.
Now, and that's why when a woman has made her mind up that she wants to relinquish that child, we try everything possible to have her understand that it's in the best interest of her and the child
Right.
that she makes a better plan. We really try to instill that. So if you definitely cannot parent this child, let's have you empower yourself enough to choose a loving family. And that's what adoption is about. You want to be able to place that child with somebody. So if you are the one that is working with an agency or with a private attorney to place that child, you are choosing a couple and makes you feel better with doing that.
Right.
Now, what we try to do when they do a relinquishment, that's why I say, please, call me at any time. Call me up if you can within the next couple of days, and make sure you stay in contact with me so I can help you through this and see that that this is the right decision that you made. And they do contact, not all of them.
But for the girls or women who can't do that, safe haven, to relinquish the baby with no questions asked is the way to go versus the recycle. You know,
Right.
people
Yeah.
say, well, you know, there's no information or blah, blah. I'm like, yes, but that was her alternative to harming the
Right.
baby.
She
So,
didn't, she could have made a
didn't go
conscious
quick to make an
choice and
adoption
made this
plan.
phone
Right.
call to hope and said, hey, look,
Right.
I had a baby, it's cold out, I don't know what to do, I'm frightened, I'm alone.
right, so
When
the
you leave a
fact
child outside, even in the summertime,
Yes.
in a shaded area, the child can go through, you can have the temperature 85 degrees outside, but leave that baby in an area, and the baby can go into hypothermia.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what you put a child, a newborn infant, outside in a winter month.
It's murder.
The child has about 2 minutes to
Yeah,
live.
that's murder. It's just out and out murder.
So that's why they could call us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
We'll get
every
someone.
place in the whole entire country,
That's-
no questions asked.
She told me about the one in the girl in the mall. Had a
Yes.
baby in the bathroom and puts it in a
24
bag.
hours she walked around with.
And it's not a chihuahua, you're not Paris Hilton. This is
You know, one of the strangest ones that we had was, I can say the area where it was up in Buffalo, New York, and the young woman called on the phone, and she was in a rural area, and she had the closest hospital to her was almost 50 miles away. And so that's why our ambulance signage program is so important. We have 6,000 ambulances here in New York State that have the logos on the side of their buses, and they have an ambulance signage program, policy and procedure on how to relinquish the child and how to contact the authorities and everything when the baby is received by them. But this particular woman says the only place that's close to me is a 7-Eleven. So she stayed on the phone, exactly what I said. I said, in the state of New York, a safe haven is not a place, but a responsible person. So I need you to understand, if you can is you close enough to there? And it was cold outside, so I told her how to wrap the baby up and make sure the baby was warm. And she wound up walking to this 7-Eleven, walked in, and she told me where it was. I notified the state police that a woman is going to be relinquishing a baby at the 7-Eleven. And she walked in there, laid the baby on the counter, and then ran out, picked up a Slurpee and ran out. No, she didn't get the Slurpee. But she left the baby, and the reason why I'm telling you the story was really funny. The manager, the owner of the 7-Eleven, calls 911, and they played the tape back for me up in Buffalo, and I was hysterical. All you can hear on the tape was, "Hey, man, not my baby! I tell you, I got this baby! Not my baby! And all you kept hearing him saying was, "Not my baby! Not my baby!" And the 911 operator's trying to calm me down. I said, "Okay, yes, sir." I said, "You have a baby! You have a baby!" "No, not my baby! Not me!" It was just, I'm just laughing because you had a language barrier. He spoke English, but when it was such an excited moment like this, I mean, not everybody gets a baby left on the counter and that was it. But the state, 3 minutes later, the police showed up and the sheriffs picked the baby up. They got on the phone with me and they notified Buffalo Medical Center, and they brought the baby over there.
Are you
Baby
in
was safe.
contact with most of the babies that are relinquished to Safe Haven, or?
Not everyone in the United States. As I say, I am notified on all three of the major crisis hotlines. Nick Savino was notified for Florida, and then the California one, I still get that contact through that also. But
Fantastic.
anytime, anywhere, a baby has been delivered or is relinquished, I'm notified through the crisis centers. If they call the crisis center. Now, we're giving you the figure of 2,885 babies.
That we know
That's what
about.
we know of that have been safely relinquished. We have several states that will not publicize any relinquishment whatsoever, nor they'll notify us about the safe haven relinquishment. We know it occurred because some of them we send there,
Right.
Right.
but we cannot verify it because the hospital and the Child Protective Services in that state have a policy that they will not reveal, they will not deny, nor will not release,
Yeah,
Now,
except.
in those
that- that
states,
is-
the
that-
parents aren't prosecuted.
No, they're not. Now, one of the things what we're trying to do, as I said, with the National Safe Haven Alliance, we're trying to get the unification bill, and that's something that's extremely important for us right now. We want to make sure that all the states have what is known as immunity from prosecution, and also can be relinquished to a responsible person. And I think that hopefully will go through. And also 30 days, so that no matter where you are in the United States, it'll be 30 days immunity from prosecution and also anonymous. So
Nice.
with that, it'll help further and produce more of it. Now, I've got a lot of groups out there that are against us. You'd be surprised. I have one group, the Bastard Nation, from the day I started. Adam Pertman was the president of the Bastard Nation, and who that group is that they believe that what I've created here is a disconnection of the heritage of that child.
What kind of organization are they?
They're a group of people that feel that they were adopted and they don't know who their parents are, so they feel that they lost this ability to know if they were Italian, Irish, they don't have any history.
So what they don't get is we're saving the newborn from being.
That's what I'm trying to say.
So, right, and I loved Adam. Adam Pertman and I battled head to head throughout. I mean, in New York City at hearings and legislative hearings, in Hawaii, every place I went, he was right there with me, giving his case. Now, as you can see, all 50 states have the safe haven law, so he did not win in any of the states when we were doing this. My argument was, I'd rather have a newborn infant in my arms alive
Yes.
and know that that child is going to be raised with the heritage of that adoptive family
Yes.
versus having a child that I know is Italian or Irish and with a toe tag.
Yes.
Yes.
So
I
that
agree.
was I would rather have.
That's
So they believe.
And with today's technology and DNA and things that are
it's
going on,
not too long.
they have more
They can
information
scrape the
about
skin and they'll tell you
DNA. and
everything.
They're going to tell you everything. You take a swab, a DNA swab, and you're going to have
That's the
that.
truth. That people just, I just.
Thank you so much for having us, though, because this is
I just
exactly
don't
what we
understand
need.
people.
Well, we're not gonna give up on this
Piss me off.
because me and Paulie are interested, like you said, we're going down to Florida, and I would definitely like
We
to.
do a lot of vacation, so I don't care. I'll hit every one of these
to
that
make
come on
the
vacation. I'll
vacation
meet
down
the
to
new
Florida
person from
and
Safe
maybe
Haven.
live stream. with
Live
them.
stream it right out.
Yeah.
Right out.
Sure.
That's what he saw.
Well, with Nick's program, he's got a really good program down here in Florida.
I'd love to
He
hear
has,
about it. I'd
uh,
definitely like to hear about
it.
and
Get together with him
He is really a very passionate man about Safe Haven, just like I am. He's a web tech master, so I mean he's good.
God, another Dudley. Yeah,
I'm not. Let me tell you, when I first started this, and before I got involved with the Safe Haven program, I was president of the Medical Benevolent Association and negotiated contracts and 12-hour tours and everything. So, but I can remember when I was elected and I became the first president, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a beeper. I didn't have a computer.
Wow.
I had a rotary phone at home.
That's crazy.
It's a lot
So
different.
all of a sudden, when I went into my first negotiations, I was so embarrassed and never embarrassed the way I was that day. When the commissioner said, "Listen, Tim," I said, "We're going to get the stuff together here. I'm going to send some stuff over to you. Can you give me your email address? I don't have any email." He says, "Oh, okay. So give me a fax." I don't have a fax. He says, Can I page you?" And I said, "I don't have a pager." He said, "You got a cell phone?" I said, "No, I don't have a cell phone." And I left that place, went out, stopped off at PJ's, and then next thing I know, I was in. I bought a computer, a pager, a cell phone. I got everything. I spent about $5,000, and I took a crash course in how to operate this stuff.
I know.
And that was 20 years ago.
I'm not too computer literate, and I had come into some money. And my kids were like, Dad, why don't you buy a computer? Well, $1,600 later, I learned to take one finger and move. By pressing letters, I was able to play Deer Hunter.
$1,600 and playing games on it.
10 hours a day, 7 days a week, doing this with the space bar shooting the gun. Then my dog bit me one night. And a hand got caught in the computer. It was a disaster. I had to wake her up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Needless to say, she was not a happy camper. From that point on, I said, all right, me and this computer are going to be friends. And I started to play with shit. Now, Annie, what? It doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? I hit this. Don't hit that. And she gave me literally a crash course with a frying pan to teach me how to work this. Now I get shut the computer and go to bed. Shut the computer and go to bed. I live on my computer. And she gets, and I'm a laptop, and I'll go in the bathroom, turn it on, play my Candy Crunch, talk to my friends while I'm taking a shower. She's like, dude, just give me the goddamn thing before I kill you. Even my daughter tells me. She says, you get up in the morning, choose your light, and cigarette, you go on the computer. She doesn't have to look at you sitting here in your BBDs on that stupid computer. Well, I'm talking to my friends. They're in their BBDs having
That's how I
coffee.
am with Facebook.
And, it's terrible.
But you want to
And then she buys me the phone.
You're doing something very good. He's not.
I'm doing plenty constructive stuff.
You know
Sending
what
the pictures to my
the
friends.
crisis centers today are getting more calls by texting than we are on regular phones.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
easy.
when I say the crisis hotline number, they call, we were over 2,500 calls or 2,600 calls so far this year that we've received on the hotline. But that's not just phone calls.
Right.
In other words,
That's
those
just the hotline.
2,500 are actual cases that we would categorize them
Wow.
as. But it's on Facebook. They're texting back and forth. And and that's the new contacts that
I
we have
just a
today.
friend
That's the new
on
hotline.
Facebook, and the person was from India. And I friend everybody, and then I go through and delete them. And all of a sudden I get a message that says, hey dude, what's up? And I'm looking at this picture, I'm saying, when did I friend this? It was like a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And I said to her, do you understand something? I'm a 57-year-old man in New York, and you are
That's how-
Bollywood,
I
you're
guess
in
that's also
India,
how a lot of the girls out
and you're
there
asking
get
me,
pregnant.
dude, what's up? I said, you know what, it's time to terminate this
This
friendship, and I wrote to her, I said, I hope your mommy and daddy grab your computer, because you're heading down for a shit sandwich. And I clicked it off, and she, who's that? I don't know that girl, but, because
Yesterday we had Alaska. I got a call from Alaska
Oh, my
at
God.
4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was actually from a reporter. We had a military woman give birth to a baby and left the baby on the porch, and the baby died on the porch.
holy
So
shit,
they were
prosecutor.
calling me and wanting to know about the law, and they wanted me to know information about it. Did I have any contact with this birth mother?
Prosecutor.
And so there was...
She's in the military, she shouldn't be pregnant.
Yeah, so it's...
Do you want to hold the poster up in front of
Yeah,
you
give me- I'll make a
today so
sandwich
that they
out
can
of it.
see?
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome.
Anytime you guys have an event, anytime
Let us
you
know
want
a
to
week
join
before the
in,
event,
help
and
out.
I will run it to the ground.
Well, we have the Harmony for Hope concert on the...
No, we'll be here for the funeral.
the weekend, the Sunday after Super Bowl at Mulcahy's again, and that's a good one. That we get 500-600 people.
Fabulous.
You can
Stream from there?
stream from there on that.
Right.
That would
Well, we'll get in touch
be
with Tom.
great. That's
We have one of these cameras.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why. Most people get into the business, they don't go buying cameras. We go buy cameras. Actually, my sister brought it.
All right, we don't
And
have
we're
one
trying to
way to
teach her
have
how to, we're trying to show her how to do it. So Terry, you go to Mulcahy's.
Yeah, put that up so like,
Can everybody see this?
bring it up,
Can I thank Breeze? Can
huh?
I thank Breeze?
Sure, when that comes down, okay.
Is good?
Now everybody's got the number and we'll put that up on our Facebook.
Okay, cool, and a shout out to Breeze for hooking
Well,
this up.
Get away. Definitely, Breeze is very good. I'm very grateful to him. And I'm grateful for you to come out and share the experience. Like I said, I'd like to meet
I'm happy.
the people
I
in
really am.
Florida so that we could continue doing this.
Awesome.
With all the nonsense that I pull on this radio station, it's probably nice to actually do something correct.
Make a difference?
Yeah, because my theory is, and I always say this on the radio, people got to wake up. They they're gonna realize that we're in trouble. And I'm not a deeply religious person, but if you really kind of think, you know, God always says, and if you really think about it, take care of each other. This is a form of taking care of each other.
Absolutely.
This is taking care of our children. This is the village taking care of a child. And there's nothing wrong with that.
And that's what we need.
And they gotta grasp this concept that we as people, as individuals, just want to survive in the world. These kids need hope and direction.
And that's what we need, so that's why.
This gives them hope.
That's why I keep prompting people to become fans of Baby Safe Haven, and we finally reached over 6,000 fans, which was just my goal, but it's 6,000 people that know about the Safe Haven program
Yeah.
now, so.
So that's good, though.
You want to say goodbye for today? Turn around.
Yeah, let me turn around.
Tony, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Tim, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you for having us.
I'll see you later.
Anytime.
To everybody, the Madhouses, Paulie, love, honor, and respect to everybody. Check it out, help them out. I know they're bikers, but you know what? We're all children. We all were lost at one time. Do not continue to let these children go lost or go without love or a family. You're a true biker, you're about family. So let's get up off our asses, put our money where our mouth is, do what we gotta do, because me and my team, we're in 100%. Thank you from Madhouse. Have a good day.